I've dealt with way too many injuries as a college runner, so here are all the things that I'm doing to stay healthy. Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Olivia if you're new here, and I am a college cross-country and track runner at Florida State. In this video, I am going to go over a list that I created of different things that I'm doing to stay healthy and avoid injury. So kind of going through my injury history, the first time I ever struggled with any injury was my junior year of high school. I was going into my junior year and I was really ramping up my training volume and intensity trying to get good for college. I had no idea what a stress fracture was. I didn't even know that you could break your bones from running too much, and that's exactly what I did. I just ran so many miles and ramped up my intensity so fast that I ended up getting a stress fracture in my shin, and I ended up learning a lot about injuries and how to prevent them. Going into college, I did have, a shift once again in my training and just intensity and lifestyle and all of that. And I think whenever you go from one level to another level, it's going to be a difficult adjustment. So I dealt with a stress reaction in my femoral neck, which was a pretty difficult injury. I wasn't on crutches, but I was off of running for about 12 weeks, and then I later had a really tough injury. I had two femur stress fractures at the same time, kind of in the same place, and that was just from coming back a little bit too fast from the femoral neck. And more recently, I had probably my most difficult injury, which was a femoral neck stress reaction in my other hip. So we've hit both hips and both femurs. I was on crutches for this one, and I was on crutches for about 6 weeks, off of running for about 14 weeks. But now I am, post-injury for quite a while. I've raced since then, and I think I've just come up with a lot of really different ways to stay healthy. I haven't really dealt with a ton of soft tissue injuries. I have had, occasional Achilles tendonitis and things like that. But I think that all of these tips that I'm going to go over are going to be really helpful whether you've dealt with bony injuries, tendon injuries, muscle injuries, because they all really focus on those key components of how you can stay healthy and how you can recover. And although I've had so many injuries, I think that I learned so much, and I feel like I'm finally in a place where I am able to overcome the injuries. Even recently I had a little bit of a flare-up a couple of months ago, and I made the decision to kind of push racing. And even though that was a difficult decision, I do think it's helped keep me healthy. So the first thing that I do, and I have the privilege of doing as a college athlete, is routine lab work combined with a DEXA scan. So if you're someone who's struggled with stress fractures specifically, I would definitely recommend getting a DEXA scan. And I would honestly recommend that any runner, if possible, get lab work done. It's really interesting to see what your vitamin D levels look like and what your iron levels look like. For me, I came into college with low vitamin D and low iron, so that's something that we've since addressed. And vitamin D is super important for bone health, so that's something that it's really important to look at and see if you're at risk for bone injuries. As for the DEXA scan, that was really helpful for me. Looking at the DEXA scan, we saw that I didn't necessarily have low bone density, which was encouraging and kind of showed me that there were other ways that I could keep myself healthy and that my bones weren't necessarily predisposed to all these stress fractures that I was getting. Number 2 on my list is increasing fats in diet. I think that a lot of times, maybe it's just social media, but you can see fats as being a bad thing or something that doesn't necessarily correlate with athletics. But for me, putting a lot of healthy fats in my diet has helped with hormone health, which is super important for your bones and making sure that you're recovering from training. It's making sure that you're getting enough healthy fats. And meeting with a dietitian if possible. Obviously, these are all resources that I have in college, and that's why I like making videos too, because not everyone has these resources. But making sure you're getting healthy fats. I love peanut butter, I love avocado, and it's just really important in your diet as a runner, as much as I think it's a macronutrient that's overlooked. It's something that I've been working on. Another thing with nutrition is eating before and after workouts. So For me, we would usually drive to trails, especially last year, and I wouldn't bring a snack afterwards. And your body just goes a really long time without refilling its glycogen stores, and so I think that was part of the reason that I struggled with recovery. So meal timing, if possible, if you can make sure that you're eating a bit of carbs and protein before you go for your run, obviously something that's not going to hurt your stomach, and then afterwards also refilling with some carbs, proteins, fats, super important. To make sure that your muscles are recovering, and when your muscles aren't breaking down, that's also going to help your bones recover because they're not taking on so much stress. Another thing, and I did this so much after my first 2 major injuries, I guess first 3, after my shin stress fracture, I really got in the gym. I really worked on strength work, and I've put on a lot of muscle since high school. I definitely would attribute that to all the time that I spent in the gym after getting these bone injuries. I really worked on strength work just to increase that bone density. Even now my coach tells me, okay, Olivia, we need to lift heavy, like this is going to help you stay healthy. So I definitely recommend strength work. I think that's a big thing on my list. I try to do it 2 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday. I think it works really well for me. We have a good strength and conditioning program here at FSU. Another big thing, and I think I really overlooked this for a long time, I thought it was something that wouldn't help me, is mobility and flexibility work. And that also includes the activation that I do before runs. So before runs, I go through a pretty lengthy activation routine. I actually have a video of it up on my channel right now, and that helps me to prevent injuries, because I think that a lot of times you can think, oh, I feel pretty good, and then you actually start running and something doesn't feel right. It helps to have activated before going for that run. As for mobility and flexibility, after every run, I try to just do a 5-minute stretch, and that just helps you recover in general. As for static stretching, I have been introducing that, and I think mobility is a little bit more helpful than doing static stretching, but there's a lot of good mobility routines out there. You can honestly just look up on your Instagram or TikTok or whatever and find one, but I recommend it. I think for the longest time, people were telling me, oh, you would avoid so many injuries if you just did mobility, and it's true. So this goes back a little bit to nutrition, but increasing calcium, increasing iron, increasing vitamin D intake. So for me, I think, I take supplements for all of those, but also like looking at my diet in general, I try to find ways that I can increase calcium, iron, vitamin D. This one, probably my number 1 tip other than nutrition, is 8 hours of sleep a night. Obviously, that's sometimes not obtainable, but sleep is so important for recovery. If you feel fatigued, your body's broken down, sleep is going to be your best friend. So if you're someone that really struggles with injury, prioritize your sleep, prioritize your quality of sleep, and just know that that's a really important aspect of your recovery. Another thing that I've been doing, and I mentioned in the beginning of this video, is listening to my body. It sounds really easy, but it's not. I had a race this season that I really wanted to race, but I knew my body was just not ready for it. I was only a couple months post stress fracture in my hip, and I had raced, before, didn't feel great, had only done a couple of workouts. It just didn't make sense to race. And sometimes you just have to really take those hard steps in listening to your body. For me, I like to keep a log of, stress, pain, fatigue. And I saw a really interesting video that talked about how your body doesn't know pace or mileage, but it knows stress. And this can be stress from the heat, it can be stress from hills, it can be stress from your personal life. All of those different types of stressors are going to put, fatigue on your body. So just keeping track of that, keeping track of little things. Even on runs, if I have very minor pain, I will just write it down just to keep track of it. And if I see a trend over a couple of days, then I start to back off. And I think that's a really important thing to do. I've also found that sometimes resting is actually not productive, and it's more productive to go, okay, this thing's bothering me. What rehab can I do? What treatment can I do? And in the past, I would just stop running completely, and I honestly don't think that's always the best choice, especially if you're a pretty competitive runner. Let's say you're in season, you can't just stop running. You can't just take 2 weeks off every time something pops up, so you have to have these other tools of rehab and treatment. Speaking of rehab and treatment, things that I found really helpful: hot bathing after workouts and long runs, usually not right after, but within like a couple of hours or so, I will sit in the hot tub, and that is supposed to increase inflammation in your body, which helps with recovery. I've personally found it super helpful. I used to not really believe in it as much, but now I've been doing it consistently, and it just makes my body feel really good. I also will usually stretch after that, which helps as well. Another pretty basic one: hydration and electrolytes. Obviously, it's super important that you stay hydrated. You don't want to get cramps. Your body needs water to function. Electrolytes, I think that you don't need to go crazy with electrolytes, but making sure that you're getting enough salt in your diet, maybe just throwing in an electrolyte packet here or there, especially if you're running where it's hot like Florida, that's super important. Cross training is my best friend. I am such an advocate for cross training. I think a lot of people hate on it, and I do think to a certain extent you need to run, right? For the efficiency, for getting your brain just used to what it feels like to run. But I also think cross training is a really, really good tool. And so my cross training philosophy, I will usually wear my heart rate monitor and my watch, and I'll say like, okay, this is like an easy run. And an easy run, usually anywhere from like a 130 to 140 heart rate. And it's pretty hard to get your heart rate up on the cross trainer, but doing that for 10 minutes and equating that to a mile is usually what I do. And for cross training, I love biking, I love swimming, I love the elliptical, I love the arc trainer if you have that. Rowing is also a super cool form of cross training, especially if you get bored. I also love the Stairmaster. I don't necessarily recommend it though, because I think it is a bit more intense, and if you're feeling good and you feel like, you know, it's not gonna take too much of a toll on your body, then I would go for it. But I honestly think that the beauty of cross training is that you can take a load off of your body. So definitely biking, swimming, elliptical, arc trainer, even the rowing machine I really like. This one, it's a bit basic, but avoiding sudden training spikes in intensity and volume. This is exactly what I did in high school this summer going into my junior year. I was used to running maybe like 30 miles a week, and all of a sudden upped it to 50 miles a week. I was running really hard, I was running really intense, and it was just too much for me. I think if I had built up to that mileage, it would have been okay, but really just being mindful, like if your mileage is going up, are you keeping the intensity the same? Like, are your easy runs staying the same? Are your workouts not ramping up too much? And then if you're increasing intensity, like let's say you're running a bit faster on the easy runs, you know, you're pushing the workouts, maybe you're pushing the long runs, just making sure there's not too much increase there, and also that you're not also simultaneously increasing your volume. And the last one is having fun and managing stress. So I honestly think that this was a big reason that I dealt with injury last year, and that I got the stress reaction, almost fracture in my hip that put me on crutches and took me out of running for 14 weeks. I was so stressed with school, with just my personal life. I felt so much stress in every single area. And like I said earlier, your body doesn't necessarily know training intensity, pace, mileage, but it knows stress. And when you're under a lot of stress, it makes it really hard to recover. So for me, something that I've been focusing on is having more fun, really managing my stress, and I think it helps a lot with injury recovery and just your overall health and well-being. I hope this video was helpful. I have shared a couple of these tips before, but I thought I would just make a video that was a bit more chatty and went over everything that I've kind of learned in my injury journey. I really want to avoid any more stress fractures, reactions, MRIs, major injuries. As much as I think that injuries are a part of sport, I don't think that it's normal. I don't think it's normal to have 5 stress reactions or fractures or whatever. So I hope that this video helps anyone that has dealt with something similar. And if you have any tips or anything that has worked for you, definitely leave it in the comments. But thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.